cold metal pressed against Wraith's silver scales as he curled tighter in the corner of his cell. The walls hummed with a frequency designed to scramble thoughts and prevent rest. 3 years had passed since the elders of his homeworld declared him broken. 3 years since they handed him over to the wardens of Harmony's light with apologetic faces and relieved eyes. His people were warriors. The Draconith conquered worlds and enforced galactic law with fire and fury. Their crimson scales reflected their nature, burning bright with aggression and pride. Wraith's scales shimmered like moonlight on water, pale and wrong. Worse than his appearance was his heart. He could not make himself enjoy battle. Violence turned his stomach. When his training masters ordered him to tear apart combat drones, he hesitated. When they demanded he prove his worth by defeating weaker students, he refused defective. That word followed him everywhere. His parents spoke in whispers. His teachers shouted it during failed exercises. Finally, the Council of Elders made it official. They sent him here, to this ship that traveled the void between stars, collecting the broken ones from 100 different species. The door to his cell hissed open. Wraith did not look up. He knew the routine. Twice daily, wardens came with injections meant to correct his thinking. The chemicals made him dizzy and filled his mind with fog, but they never changed what he was. He remained gentle. He remained wrong. Prisoner 7743, you are being transferred, a flat mechanical voice announced. This was new. In 3 years, nothing had changed. Wraith lifted his head slowly. A warden stood in the doorway, its form concealed beneath smooth white armor. These beings never showed their faces. Perhaps they had no faces. Perhaps they were ashamed. Where? Wraith asked, his voice rough from disuse. Integration ward. You'll be housed with others. Perhaps social pressure will accomplish what isolation has not. 2 more wardens appeared and fitted restraints around Wraith's wrists and neck. The cold metal burned against his scales. They led him through corridors that all looked identical, white and sterile and empty of any warmth. Other cells lined the walls. Wraith had never seen inside them. He wondered how many others like him existed in this place. How many beings were deemed too wrong to be allowed among their own kind? The integration ward looked different. Instead of solid walls, the cells had transparent barriers. Wraith could see inside the neighboring spaces. An insect-like creature with too many eyes sat motionless in one, a being made of living crystal dimmed and brightened rhythmically in another. Across the hall, something that looked like smoke given shape drifted in aimless patterns. The wardens shoved Wraith into an empty cell and removed his restraints. The barrier sealed behind him with a soft click. He stood in the center of the space, uncertain what to do. 3 years of isolation had made him forget how to exist near others. Hey, you okay? The voice came from the cell to his left. Wraith turned and saw emptiness. Had he imagined it? The chemicals sometimes made him hear things. Down here, near the floor. I'm not very tall. Wraith looked down. In the neighboring cell, pressed against the transparent barrier, sat a small creature unlike anything he had seen before. It stood on 2 legs and had smooth skin instead of scales or fur. 2 bright eyes stared at him with concern instead of disgust. The creature's face moved in ways that suggested emotion, pulling upward in what might be a smile. I'm Danny, the creature said. Just got here an hour ago. This place is really weird, huh? You speak common, Wraith said, surprised. Yeah, they taught us lots of languages at the colony school. I'm human. What are you? Draconith. Wraith moved closer to the barrier. You are very small. Are all humans this size? I'm 12, so I'm still growing. Adults are bigger. Danny pressed his hand against the barrier. Why are you here? What did you do wrong? The question stabbed at something deep in Wraith's chest. He had asked himself the same thing 10,000 times. I'm not violent enough. My people are warriors. I am not. Danny nodded slowly. That's why I'm here too. Kind of. I stopped some older kids from beating up younger ones at school. The Galactic Council said I was too protective and too emotional. They said humans are supposed to be tough and independent, not soft. He laughed, but the sound held no joy. Funny how you get punished for being nice. Yes. Wraith sat down across from Danny. For the first time in 3 years, he did not feel entirely alone. Funny, do you have a name? Or do they just call you a number here? Wraith. Cool name. Listen, Wraith, I don't think we're the ones who are wrong. I think maybe they are. Danny leaned forward, his voice dropping to a whisper. My dad told me once that people fear what they don't understand. Maybe our people are scared because we're different. Maybe different isn't the same as broken. The words settled over Wraith like warm water. No one had ever suggested that the problem lay with the judges rather than the judged. The idea felt dangerous and hopeful at the same time. They will try to fix you, Wraith warned. They will put chemicals in your blood and voices in your head. They will not stop until you are what they want. Then I guess we'll just have to stay wrong together. Danny grinned again, and this time Wraith understood the expression. It meant friendship. It meant alliance. It meant not being alone. Wraith pressed his clawed hand against the barrier, where Danny's small hand rested on the other side. They could not touch, but somehow the gesture meant everything. For 3 years, Wraith had believed himself to be a mistake. Now, looking at this strange, small human who spoke of wrongness like it was a choice to be proud of, he wondered if maybe survival was possible after all. The lights in the ward dimmed to signal sleep cycle. Danny curled up on his cell's thin mat and closed his eyes. Wraith watched him for a long moment, then settled into his own corner. The metals still felt cold. The humming still scrambled his thoughts. But something had changed. Something had cracked in the armor of despair he had built around his heart. Tomorrow the wardens would come with their corrections and their judgments. They would try to break what remained of who he was. But tonight, Wraith had a friend. Tonight, being wrong did not feel quite so lonely. Days blended together in the integration ward, but they no longer felt suffocating. Wraith woke each morning to Danny's voice asking how he slept. They talked through the barriers about everything and nothing. Danny described Earth with such detail that Wraith could almost see it. Blue oceans covering most of the planet. Green forests taller than any building. Animals that flew without wings made of metal. We have these things called dogs, Danny explained during one conversation. They're these furry creatures that love you no matter what. My dog, Buster, used to sleep at the foot of my bed every night. When I was sad, he knew. He'd put his head on my lap and just stay there until I felt better. Your people keep predators as companions. Wraith asked, fascinated. Well, they used to be predators like thousands of years ago. Now they're just friends. We changed together, I guess. They became gentler, and we became more caring. Danny paused. Maybe that's why the council thinks I'm broken. Humans used to be really aggressive. We fought wars over everything. But we learned. Most of us learned, anyway. Wraith understood. His own people told stories of ancient times when Draconith fought each other instead of for each other. Those stories always ended with praise for the strong who united the species through conquest. No one ever talked about the gentle ones who might have wanted peace instead. The wardens noticed their friendship. On the 5th day, they separated Danny and Wraith during therapy sessions. On the 7th day, they turned off the translation systems in their cells, hoping language barriers would end their conversations. But Danny was clever. He taught Wraith hand signals. Pointed I meant look. Hand over heart meant friend. Fist raised meant strength. Your integration scores are declining. A warden told Danny during inspection. Association with prisoner 7743 is detrimental to your correction. His name is Wraith, Danny said firmly. And he's my friend. Friends don't abandon each other. The warden's helmet tilted slightly. Friendship is not discouraged. Friendship with defective elements is. You'll be moved to intensive treatment. They came for Danny that night. Wraith pressed against the barrier, watching as 4 wardens entered Danny's cell. The boy did not fight. He simply looked at Wraith and pressed his fist to his heart, then pointed at him. Stay strong, friend. The cell next to Wraith became empty. The silence crushed him worse than 3 years of isolation ever had. He stopped eating. When wardens brought injections, he did not resist, but he did not cooperate either. His body remained, but his mind drifted somewhere else. Somewhere that did not hurt quite so much. 2 days passed. Or maybe 3. Time lost meaning again. Then something fell through the ventilation grate in his cell. A small white object, folded into the shape of a bird. Wraith picked it up carefully. His claws were meant for tearing, but he managed to unfold the delicate thing without destroying it. Marks covered the inside. Human writing. He had learned some of their alphabet from Danny. The message read, "Real strength is choosing kindness when the world wants cruelty. You're not broken. You're brave." Wraith read it 17 times. Each word carved itself into his memory. Danny had found a way. Even in intensive treatment, even facing whatever horrors they inflicted there, the human boy thought about his friend. Wraith folded the paper carefully and hid it under his sleeping mat. He began eating again. When wardens came with their corrections, he submitted, but did not break. Danny believed he was brave. Wraith would prove him right. But the wardens found the message during a cell inspection. They held it up, examining the writing. Contraband. Unauthorized communication. This is serious violation. They made Wraith watch on a monitor as they punished Danny. The human boy was strapped to a chair in a white room. Lights flashed in patterns meant to cause pain. Danny's face twisted in agony, but he did not scream. He stared at the camera as if he knew Wraith was watching, and he smiled. Even through torture, he smiled. Something broke inside Wraith. Not his spirit. Something else. Something deeper and older and far more powerful. The pain hit him like a physical force. Not his pain. Danny's pain. He felt it in his chest, burning and sharp. But it was not just Danny. Suddenly, Wraith felt everything. The crystal being in the cell across from him radiated loneliness like heat. The smoke creature felt confusion, so profound it was almost madness. The insect being experienced despair that had no words in any language. Wraith collapsed, overwhelmed by the emotions of hundreds of prisoners throughout the ship. They crashed over him in waves. Fear and sadness and anger and hopelessness. So much suffering. So many beings told they were wrong for being what they were. His scales began to glow. Silver light filled his cell, then spilled into the corridor. The empathic dampeners built into the walls started smoking. Alarms shrieked throughout the ship. Wardens ran through the corridors, trying to contain whatever was happening. But Wraith could not stop. He did not know how to stop. The emotions kept coming, and his body channeled them like lightning through metal. The dampeners failed one by one, cell by cell, ward by ward. Prisoners who had not felt genuine emotion in years suddenly felt everything. Some collapsed. Others raged. A few laughed with the joy of finally feeling alive again. In the chaos, locks disengaged. Barriers flickered. The ship's automated systems, overwhelmed by the surge of empathic energy, began shutting down non-essential functions. That included cell security. Wraith barely noticed. He curled on the floor of his cell, drowning in an ocean of other people's pain. His last thought before consciousness faded was of Danny's smile through torture. The bravest thing he had ever seen. When darkness took him, the silver light finally dimmed. But the damage was done. Throughout Harmony's light, prisoners stood in open doorways, staring at freedom they had forgotten could exist. Among them, in a white room 3 levels down, a human boy named Danny felt his restraints released. He did not run toward escape. He ran toward his friend. Danny's legs burned as he sprinted through corridors filled with smoke and flashing lights. Every few seconds, the ship shuddered like a living thing in pain. Other prisoners wandered past him, dazed and confused by their sudden freedom. Most had forgotten how to make choices for themselves. They stood in hallways, waiting for someone to tell them what to do next. A crystalline being blocked his path, its body flickering between colors. Danny skidded to a stop. "Please," the being said in broken common. "Where go? What do?" "Follow me," Danny said without hesitation. "We're going to help my friend, then we're getting out of here." The crystal being fell and stepped behind him. Soon others joined. An insect creature with too many legs. A floating sphere of contained energy. Something that looked like living water. They formed a strange parade through the chaos, following this small human boy who moved with purpose while they had none. Danny found a wall terminal and pulled up a ship map. The wardens had not locked him in the torture room. They had not expected anyone to be able to move during a full empathic surge. Human stubbornness had advantages. His hands shook as he traced the route to the integration ward. 3 levels up, half the ship away. Listen, he told the group gathered around him. Some of you might want to find escape pods. That's okay, but I'm going to get Wraith. He's a Draconith with silver scales, and he's my friend. Anyone who wants to help, come with me. Anyone who wants to run, I understand. None of them left. Maybe they had nowhere else to go. Maybe they were curious about what friendship meant. Maybe they just needed someone to follow. Danny did not care why. He just started running again. They encountered their first warden near a junction. The armored figure raised a weapon, but the insect being leaped forward and knocked it from his hands. The crystal creature grew sharp edges and blocked the corridor. Danny and the others ran past while the warden struggled against beings it had once controlled so easily. More wardens appeared. The group worked together without planning, instinct guiding them. The floating sphere generated bursts of light that blinded. The water being flowed under doors and opened them from the other side. Danny coordinated them with hand signals and shouted directions. He had never been a leader before. His teachers said he cared too much about others to make hard choices. But right now, caring was exactly what they needed. They reached the integration ward to find it in ruins. Barriers had shattered. Furniture lay scattered. And in the center of what used to be Wraith's cell, the silver dragon lay motionless. Danny pushed through the group and dropped to his knees beside Wraith. The Draconith's scales had lost their glow. His breathing came shallow and fast. Danny pressed his hand to Wraith's chest and felt a heartbeat. Weak, but steady. Wraith, wake up. Please wake up. The dragon's eyes flickered open, unfocused. Danny, you should run. They will come. I'm not leaving you. We're leaving together. Danny looked at the others. Help me get him up. The crystal being and the insect creature moved forward. Together, they lifted Wraith to his feet. The dragon swayed, but remained standing. He stared at Danny with something like wonder. You came back for me. Of course I did. That's what friends do. Danny grinned despite the danger. Besides, you're the one who busted us out. That light show was incredible. How did you do that? I do not know. I felt your pain, and I felt everyone's pain, and something inside me broke open. Wraith looked around at the assembled prisoners. These beings followed you. More like we're all figuring this out together. But yeah, they trust me, which is weird because I'm just a kid. You are more than that. Wraith's voice grew stronger. You are a leader. Explosions echoed from somewhere deep in the ship. The floor tilted slightly before stabilizing. Something had gone very wrong with the ship's systems. Danny pulled up the terminal again and checked status reports. His eyes went wide. We're not just dead in space. We're heading somewhere. The navigation systems are still active and locked on a destination. He scrolled through data he barely understood. It says Final Correction Facility. Does that mean anything to you? The crystal being made a sound like breaking glass. In place. Where unfixable go. They terminate. Danny felt cold. You mean they kill people there? Not kill. Erase. Make not exist. Wraith steadied himself against the wall. How long until we arrive? 6 hours. Maybe less. Danny looked at the group. Nobody spoke. They just stared at him, waiting, hoping. Okay, we can't just run. The escape pods won't get us far enough. They'll track us down. We need to take control of this ship. Impossible, Wraith said. We are prisoners. They are trained wardens with weapons and authority. They're trained to control people who've given up. But we haven't given up. We have something they don't. Danny touched his chest, then pointed at each member of the group. We have each other. They work for the council. We work for ourselves. And I'd rather die trying to be free than let them erase us. The insect being clicked its mandibles in what might have been agreement. The water being rippled with approval. One by one, the others showed their support in whatever way their species could. Wraith looked at Danny with respect that bordered on awe. You truly believe we can do this? I believe we have a try. My dad told me something before I left Earth. He said the strongest thing a person can do is stand up when everyone expects you to stay down. Danny held out his hand. So let's stand up. Together. Wraith clasped Danny's hand with his clawed one, careful not to hurt the fragile human skin. Together. The words spread through the group. Together. In 100 languages, in a dozen different ways of speaking, they all said it. Together. The bridge was 12 levels above them. Danny studied the ship's schematic while Wraith recovered his strength. The other prisoners gathered supplies from empty cells and abandoned guard stations. The insect being, who Danny learned was named Skrit, found a cache of tools that could be used as weapons. The crystal creature, Loom, discovered the ship's communication hub and managed to disable internal tracking. Smart group, Danny muttered. They just needed someone to believe in them. Wraith stood beside him, steadier now. They believe in you. In us. We cannot fail them. No pressure or anything. Danny forced a smile. Okay, here's what I'm thinking. The wardens will expect us to head for escape pods or try to hide. They won't expect us to attack. So we go straight for the bridge, fast and loud. That is not strategy. That is suicide. Maybe. But if we sneak around, they'll pick us off one by one. If we charge forward, they have to react instead of plan. My dad taught me that. He was in the military before he became a farmer. Danny looked at the assembled prisoners. 17 beings from 11 species. All of them considered effective. All of them looking at him for answers. We use our differences as advantages. Skrit can climb walls. Loom can blind them with light. The water being can slip through vents and open doors. Everyone has something. And what do you have? Wraith asked gently. Danny thought about it. I care about people. That's why I'm here. The wardens think that's a weakness. But maybe it's not. Maybe caring makes me brave enough to do stupid things. Bravery and stupidity often look the same, Wraith agreed. But you are correct. We use what makes us different. What makes us wrong in their eyes. They moved through the ship like a storm. Wardens appeared in corridors, and the prisoners overwhelmed them through sheer unpredictability. Nobody fought the way they were supposed to. Skrit used his many legs to pin enemies, while Loom's blinding flashes confused their targeting systems. The water being, who Danny called Flow, swept through barriers and disabled locks. Wraith discovered he could still project emotions if he focused. When wardens cornered them in a supply room, he channeled Danny's determination through his empathic abilities. The wardens faltered, suddenly feeling doubt. In that moment of hesitation, the prisoners escaped. They lost 2 members to capture during the climb to upper levels. A floating sphere of energy was caught in a magnetic trap. The smoke creature got pulled into a ventilation system and did not reappear. Danny felt each loss like a punch to the gut. These were people trusting him. People who died because they believed he had a plan. We cannot save everyone, Wraith said, sensing Danny's guilt. But we can honor them by continuing. 6 hours became 5. 5 became 4. The final correction facility drew closer with every passing moment. They reached the level below the bridge and encountered serious resistance. A full squad of wardens blocked the corridor with energy shields and heavy weapons. Danny's group had tools and desperation. The fight was brief and brutal. Skrit lost 2 legs. Loom cracked down the center, but they pushed through. The bridge doors stood before them, sealed and imposing. Flow slipped through microscopic gaps and disabled the locks from inside. The doors opened with a hiss. The head warden sat in a command chair, facing a wall of screens. She did not wear a helmet. Her face was smooth and expressionless, with too many eyes arranged in a circle around her head. She watched them enter without surprise. Prisoner 7743 and Prisoner 8891. And friends. Her voice was calm. Predictable. We have been tracking your progress. Then you know we're taking the ship, Danny said, trying to sound confident. Are you? The head warden stood. Look at the screens. The displays showed different sections of a ship. In each one, wardens were herding captured prisoners in his cells. The rebellion was failing. Only Danny's group had made it this far. You're children playing at revolution. The council has been dealing with defectives for 3,000 years. Did you think you were the first to try freedom? The head warden approached them slowly. The final correction facility is necessary. Some beings cannot be fixed, cannot be helped. They must be removed for the good of galactic society. We're not broken, Danny said. We're just different. Different is dangerous. The council maintains order through uniformity. Each species has a role. Each individual has a function. Those who deviate threaten the entire system. The head warden gestured at the screens. You call yourselves defective. I call you evolutionary dead ends. Nature's mistakes. Wraith stepped forward, his silver scales beginning to glow. You are afraid. I do not feel fear. You are lying. I can feel it. You are terrified of us. Wraith's glow intensified. You fear what we represent. Change. Growth. The possibility that your perfect order is actually a cage. The head warden's too many eyes narrowed. Control him. Activate the dampeners. Nothing happened. Loom had destroyed the dampener controls during their approach. The head warden realized her mistake too late. Wraith's empathic power flooded the bridge. But this time, he did not project pain or fear. He projected memory. The memory of Danny staying with him in the cell when he could have left. The memory of prisoners helping each other climb to freedom. The memory of beings who had nothing choosing to share everything. The bridge crew felt it. Wardens who had spent decades suppressing emotion suddenly experienced hope. Love. Friendship. The things they had been taught to erase from themselves, and others point. One warden dropped her weapon. Then another. Then 5 more. They looked at their hands as if seeing them for the first time. The head warden shouted orders, but her voice could not compete with what Wraith was making them feel. Stop this, she demanded. You are breaking protocol. You are destroying order. No, Danny said quietly. We're showing them what they forgot. That being alive means feeling things. Even the hard things. Especially the hard things. The head warden lunged for an emergency control panel. Wraith moved faster. He caught her arm gently, carefully, and looked into all her eyes at once. You do not have to be afraid anymore, he said. You can choose differently. For a moment, every eye on her face showed something other than cold efficiency. She looked almost human, almost vulnerable. Then she pulled away and collapsed into her chair, covering her face with both hands. Around the bridge, wardens stood confused and uncertain. The foundation of their world had cracked. Danny approached the main control console carefully. Half the bridge crew watched him with weapons lowered. The other half stared at nothing, lost in feelings they had suppressed for years. The head warden remained in her chair, silent and still. Can someone help me figure out how to stop this ship? Danny asked. Please. A warden with blue markings on her armor stepped forward. She removed her helmet, revealing a face with delicate features and large eyes. I can help. I am Navigation Officer Trell. I have wanted to help for a very long time. Together, they worked at the console. Trell's hand shook as she entered commands. The autopilot is locked by council protocols. Only a full command staff can override it. We need authorization codes from 3 senior officers. The head warden is right there, Danny pointed out. She is the first. We need 2 more. Trell glanced around the bridge. Officer Kern and Officer Voss are the next highest ranking, but they are loyal to the old ways. Wraith moved through the bridge, his empathic sense guiding him. He stopped beside a warden who stood rigid near the weapon station. You are Kern. I am. The warden's voice was flat. You are the empathic anomaly. You should not exist. Yet I do, and you feel doubt. Wraith tilted his head. I can sense it. You have questions about what you do here. Kern said nothing for a long moment. Then he spoke quietly. My daughter was defective. She laughed too much, cried too easily, cared too deeply. They took her to correct her 5 years ago. He looked at Wraith. She never came back. I am sorry. I told myself it was necessary, that the council knew best. That order mattered more than one child. Kern's hands tightened on his weapon. But when you projected those memories, I felt what my daughter must have felt. The fear, the confusion, the desperate hope that someone would help her. You can help others now, Danny said. You can choose differently than you were chosen for. Kern lowered his weapon and walked to the console. He entered his authorization code without speaking. One down. Officer Voss proved harder. He stood at the back of the bridge, weapon raised, watching everyone with suspicion. This is mutiny. The council will send ships. They will execute every being on this vessel. Maybe, Danny admitted, but at least we'll die free. At least we'll die knowing we tried. Freedom is chaos. The council prevents chaos. Voss's finger moved toward his weapon's trigger. I will not betray my oath. Skrit moved suddenly, his insect body flowing across the floor faster than anyone expected. He positioned himself between Voss and the group, mandibles clicking in warning. The warden aimed at him. Wait! Loom's crystalline form shifted colors rapidly. Show him. Show him truth. Wraith understood. He reached out with his empathic abilities, but this time he did not push his own feelings. Instead, he pulled. He drew out the emotions Voss had buried so deep, even he had forgotten them. Memories surfaced. A young Voss laughing with friends. Voss crying at a beautiful sunset. Voss holding someone he loved who had been taken for correction. Voss's weapon clattered to the floor. He felt at his knees, gasping. I forgot I used to feel things. The council made you forget, Wraith said gently. They made everyone forget. But you can remember now. You can choose now. Voss stood slowly and walked to the console like a man in a dream. His hands entered the final authorization code. The autopilot disengaged. Alarm stopped. The ship was theirs. Trell quickly changed course, steering away from the final correction facility. Where do we go? The council controls most of known space. Danny looked at Wraith. What about your homeworld? Would your people help? No. They would hand us back to the council. My people value order above all else. What about Earth? Flo asked, the water being's voice rippling. Humans helped before. Stories say humans rebel against unfairness. Earth is far, Trell said. 3 weeks at full speed, and the council will be hunting us within hours. Danny made a decision that surprised even himself. Send a message to Earth first. Tell them what happened here. Tell them what the council does to people it thinks are wrong. Tell them we need help. The council will intercept it, Voss warned. Good. Let them. Let the whole galaxy know. Danny's voice grew stronger. Let everyone know that defective people fought back. That broken ones refused to stay broken. Maybe others will hear and realize they're not alone. Wraith placed a clawed hand on Danny's shoulder. You are thinking like a human, like someone who believes one voice can change everything. My dad says humans are stubborn that way. We don't like being told what we can't do. Danny grinned. Besides, what's the worst that can happen? We're already heading for a termination facility. Trell's fingers flew across the controls. Message encoded and ready to transmit. Broadcasting on all frequencies. Do it. The message launched into space, carrying their story to every corner of the galaxy. Danny spoke into the recorder, his young voice clear and certain. He told them about Wraith, about the prisoners, about the final correction facility. He ended with words his father had taught him. Anyone listening who thinks they're broken, you're not. Anyone who thinks they're alone, you're not. Anyone who thinks they can't fight back, you can. We're proof. A dragon who cares too much and a human who won't give up. If we can do this, anyone can. So please, help us. Help yourselves. Help everyone who's been told they're wrong just for being different. The transmission ended. Silence filled the bridge. Then alarms screamed to life. On the screens, council warships appeared, dropping out of faster-than-light travel. 5 of them, each one large enough to swallow Harmony's light hole. They responded fast, Voss said. Of course they did. The head warden finally spoke, her voice tired. You just told the galaxy their greatest secret, that the council maintains power through fear and control. They cannot allow that knowledge to spread. Danny looked at the approaching warships. They had minutes at best. He felt fear, real and sharp, but also something else. Pride. They had tried. Against impossible odds, they had stood up. That had to count for something that Wraith's scales glowed softly. Danny, whatever happens next, thank you for being my friend, for showing me that wrong and broken are just words, that who we are matters more than what others think we should be. Same to you, Danny said. You're the best friend I ever had. The warships closed in. On the bridge, prisoners and former wardens stood together, waiting for the end. At least they would face it free. The council warships moved into position, surrounding Harmony's light like predators circling wounded prey. Danny watched the screens, counting seconds. Any moment now, they would fire. The rebellion would end in light and fire and silence. Then something else appeared on the scanners. New contacts, Trell announced, her voice rising with confusion. Multiple ships dropping out of faster than light. Dozens of them. Hundreds. The screen showed vessels of every size and design pouring into the area. Cargohodes, personal transports, mining ships, even small pleasure craft. None of them were military. None of them matched. But they positioned themselves between Harmony's light and the Council warships. What is happening? Voss asked. A transmission crackled through the bridge speakers. This is Captain Rodriguez of the human transport vessel Wandering Star. We received a distress call from a boy named Danny and a Draconith named Wraith. We're here to help. More voices joined in. Different species. Different languages translated through common channels. They had heard the message. Beings from across the galaxy who had defective family members, who had lost loved ones to correction facilities, who had always wondered if they were broken for questioning the Council. The human fleet is 3 days away, Rodriguez continued. But they're coming. Until then, you've got us. A bunch of nobody ships flown by people the galaxy thinks don't matter. Let's show the Council what nobodies can do. The Council warships hesitated. They could destroy Harmony's light easily, but firing through hundreds of civilian vessels would make them look like monsters. The Council's power relied on the illusion that they protected people. Massacring civilians would shatter that illusion. Danny grabbed the communication controls. This is Danny. You came. You actually came. Kid, you broadcast your message on every frequency in the galaxy. My daughter heard it in her classroom. My wife heard it at work. Within an hour, humans were pulling ships out of docks and heading this way. Rodriguez laughed. You pissed off the Council, woke up the galaxy, and gave hope to every person who ever felt like they didn't fit. Of course we came. A larger vessel appeared, broadcasting Draconith identification codes. Wraith stared at the screen in disbelief. That is a ship from my homeworld, a transport vessel. The transmission came through, speaking the harsh language of the Draconith. Wraith translated for Danny. They say not all of our people agree with the Council's methods. They say many Draconith have lost children to correction. They say they want their children back. More ships arrived. Every minute brought new vessels. The space around Harmony's light became crowded with a fleet that should not exist. A fleet of the wrong, the broken, the defective, and those who love them. The Council warships retreated. They could not fight this, not without admitting what they truly were, not without exposing the system they had built on the suffering of those who dared to be different. Days passed. The volunteer fleet stayed in position while human military vessels arrived with formal authority to negotiate. Danny and Wraith watched from the bridge as official representatives boarded Harmony's light. The head warden surrendered her vessel and her crew without resistance. What happens to us? She asked the human admiral who took command. We were following orders. That's what everyone says, the admiral replied. She was an older woman with gray hair and tired eyes. But you still made choices. You'll face trial. Real trial, not council correction. Some of you may go to prison. Some may not. We'll figure it out. She turned to Danny. And you, kid, you started something. The council is scrambling. Half their member species are demanding answers about correction facilities. The other half are threatening to leave the council entirely. You might have just changed the entire galaxy. Danny felt overwhelmed. I just wanted to help my friend. That's how most revolutions start. Someone loves someone else enough to take a risk. The admiral smiled. Earth is offering asylum to any being deemed defective by the council. We figure we're pretty defective ourselves, so we might as well stick together. You interested? Wraith looked at Danny. Danny looked back. Neither needed to speak. They both knew the answer. 3 weeks later, Danny stood in a field on Earth near his family's farm. Green grass stretched in every direction. The sky was blue and clear. Buster ran circles around him, barking with joy at his return. Wraith landed beside him, wings folding against his silver scales. Flight had been banned on his homeworld, considered too dangerous and individualistic. Here on Earth, humans taught him how to soar. His first flight had made him cry with happiness. Is it always this beautiful? Wraith asked. Sometimes it rains. Sometimes it's cold. But yeah, mostly. Danny threw a stick for Buster. Do you miss your people? Some of them. But they are not ready for what I am. Wraith watched the dog retrieve the stick. Here, being gentle is not a crime. Being different is not a disease. I could be myself. Other beings had come to Earth. The crystal creature Loom now taught classes at a university, sharing her people's knowledge of physics. Skrit worked in construction, his many limbs making him incredibly efficient. Flo helped in hydroponics farms. Hundreds of others found places where their differences were advantages rather than problems. Danny's parents had welcomed Wraith like a second son. His mother taught the dragon to cook. His father showed him how to repair farming equipment. They never asked him to be anything other than himself. Your transmission reached everywhere, Wraith said. I received a message from my younger sister. She says she is scared because she feels things too deeply. She asks if Earth would accept her. What did you tell her? I told her yes. I told her she would be safe here, that humans understand being different. Wraith's scales caught the sunlight, gleaming like polished metal. I told her about you, about the human boy who was my unexpected friend, who gave me freedom when everyone said I deserved only correction. Danny smiled. You gave me freedom too. Before I met you, I thought maybe they were right. Maybe caring too much was wrong. But you showed me that caring is the whole point. That's what makes us alive. They sat in the grass together, dragon and human, watching the sun set over the field. Ships continued arriving from across the galaxy, carrying those who had been told they were wrong. Earth's population swelled with the different, the defective, the ones who refused to fit into neat categories. The council still existed, but their power had cracked. Member species demanded reforms. Correction facilities closed. The idea that being different was a disease slowly died. It would take years, maybe generations, but change had begun, and it had started with 2 prisoners in adjacent cells. One a dragon who cared too much. One a human who would not give up. Both punished for being wrong. Both freed by friendship. Wraith pressed his clawed hand against Danny's smaller one. Thank you, unexpected friend. Thank you, best friend. Above them, another ship descended, carrying more beings seeking refuge. Earth opened its arms to them all, a planet of misfits building something new, something better, something that celebrated the wrong ones instead of correcting them. In the fading light, Danny and Wraith remained in the field, 2 souls who had found freedom in the most unexpected place. Not in isolation, not in correction, but in the simple act of refusing to let the other face darkness alone. They had been told they were broken. They had proven they were simply different. And that difference had changed everything.